All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the first of our Project Citizen in Focus series. We are very excited to be able to offer this series to you and to be able to really do a deep dive over the course of several sessions into our Project Citizen curriculum and to provide you with lots of additional tools to help you implement Project Citizen in the classroom, and very importantly, to make it work for you. This is a terrific curriculum. Many of you, I'm sure, already have some experience with it, but it is incredibly user-friendly, and you're able to make modifications and tweaks and really make it what you need it to be to arrive at those results that we want to see from our students with building empathy, building critical thinking skills, encouraging them to become engaged citizens in their own communities. So again, thank you for joining us. My name is Emily Voss. I am the Senior Manager of National Programs and Professional Development at the Center for Civic Education. And with me this evening, I'll have our two amazing facilitators introduce themselves, but we have Christine Hall and Denise Paxton. So I will hand things back very briefly then, or to kick things off, to Christine and Denise, and then I'll pop back in again during the session and then with a couple of points here at the end. But throughout the session today, this is very much meant to be a interactive session. So as you have questions, please go ahead and you can post them in the chat. It might be easiest for you to do that rather than try to do the raise hand feature, just in case we want to be able to capture the questions for notes. But we are going to have some sessions for breakout rooms as well. So we certainly do look forward to lots of questions and engagement from you. So with that, Christine and Denise, please go right ahead.
All right. Well, thank you everybody so much. And thank you, Emily, for inviting Denise and I to do this. This is definitely an area of civic engagement that is really, really important to both Denise and I. So today we just want to make sure that we cover kind of the plan and what you will get out of this. So a couple of things, our goals are for you to gain valuable insights and practical strategies, exploring ways to extend its impact beyond the classroom. This is a big one for Denise and I, exploring that nuanced meaning of the term citizen and really what that means. That's a really important feature for us, having both of us taught in really, really diverse environments. And it was a really, really important piece of this project for us. And then we're going to go over the portfolio and the simulated hearing. We're actually going to show you an example of a class in our county that we live in and how they did it. And we're really excited to share that with you. But we're going to be the people on the panel, and we're going to all work together to engage in it instead of just watching. We're actually going to really work through that together. So we hope that you are ready to for this interactive time with us. A couple of other things that we want to make sure we give you today is some practical strategies and timelines. And like we said, we're going to explore the portfolio, and then some innovative things that we feel like really work well with this program. So very quickly, we are going to walk through some welcome and introduction, which we're doing now. We're going to visit the skills and dispositions that we just did as our warm up. And we're going to talk about why authentic assessment is so important. Then we're going to do an overview of Project Citizen, and that's when we're going to do our breakouts. We're very excited about that piece. Then we're going to dig into that portfolio, as we mentioned, and then we'll do some Q&A with you, but feel free to ask questions along the way. And if it makes sense to answer it right then, Emily's going to pop in and let us know. And then at the end, we'll definitely stop sharing screen so that we can all see each other. And then finally, we'll close out with Emily, and she'll give you your next steps, including how to register for the next session of Project Citizen in Focus. Okay, so It's important that we all know each other because we're going to spend the next little bit of time together. So in the chat, if you could share what state you are from, what grade you teach, or grades that you work with if you are not currently teaching, and what is your favorite thing about your school community? So if you could throw that in the chat. We could probably maybe copy that into the chat. So then as they're typing, Denise and I can do our introductions. Would that work? Thinking of saving time. We want to make sure we give lots of time for the breakout rooms.
Yes.
We over plan. We are those teachers, by the way. Denise and I are the ones that always over plan. Yeah.
You are absolutely welcome to introduce yourselves while our participants are introducing themselves.
Awesome. Okay, well, as Emily said, my name's Christine Hull, and I work with the Nevada Center for Civic Engagement as the program director. This is my crew. My oldest is 15, and she's a sophomore in high school. My middle is my boy, and he is a 7th grader, almost 13. And our youngest is almost 10, and she's in 4th grade. And those are our pups. That's Milo and Lucy. And I can definitely be found around my house with multiple half empty tea cups. So my kids call me the tea reheater all the time because I never finish a cup of tea ever. And as you can tell, I really love shiplap. So a little bit about me, and Denise and I live in the same city. We're both in the Reno Sparks, Nevada area in northern Nevada, right near Lake Tahoe, for those of you that are not familiar with our area. So Denise, go ahead.
I'm Denise Paxton. I work for the Nevada Center for Civic Engagement as well. I'm their professional learning director. And that is my tribe there. My son is my oldest. He is living his best life down in San Diego. He surfs every day, skateboards, is lead singer in a band, and just living his best life. He was sent home during COVID from college. He was a wrestler at a university in Atlanta, Georgia area. And he decided about probably, I don't know, 6 credits short, he was done with school. So, that's always fun. My daughter in the yellow dress, she is currently attending the University of Nevada in secondary social studies. So she's a future teacher for us. And my stepdaughter in the black shirt, she is graduated from high school and working, but she is kind of one that's near and dear to my heart with what I'm doing right now. She is on the autism spectrum, and she's out there doing her thing. And then my husband. I'm a huge advocate. I am one that you will find that will literally stand in front of a bus if it's not safe for kids. What the bus is doing, that actually I did that. So I'm a huge advocate. I'm always what's best for students, for kids. And I have gone back critical needs part-time to teach in a middle school strategies class, students with autism, at a probably our lowest socioeconomic school in our area. And so it drew me back into the classroom.
Hi. I got to introduce myself a little bit before. I have been with the Center for Civic Education for a little over a year now. And prior to that, I was a state coordinator of We the People and Project Citizen in Virginia for close to 10 years. So I had the opportunity to work for Big Project Citizen and Big We the People. And I absolutely have loved it. So this is one of the best things I get to do is hang out with other folks who are really passionate about civics education and history education. And this is just an amazing opportunity. And I'm also going to use my airtime here to give the shout outs to our participants today. So we've got New Jersey 7th grade civics, Indiana 6th grade civics, Florida 6 to 12, which would encompass civics and government. We have adult learners. We have middle school, several from Florida, one from Maine. We have a supervisor of instruction, K-12 social studies. Wow. K-12 social studies, world languages, English as a second language, and service learning. I'm not sure when you find time to sleep. That's amazing.
Yeah.
We've also had Indiana, specifically with Purdue University, supporting teachers implementing Project Citizen. So we have everybody from classroom educators to teacher support. So this is a great group of folks, and I'm excited to have a chance to work with all of you.
This is very exciting. Thank you all for sharing a little bit about yourself in the chat. That really helps us to kind of, organize our plans for the rest of the time. So let's revisit those skills and dispositions. So a lot of you said critical thinking. Let's see if I stop. Let's see if this works. It's always a guessing game with let's see. Can you see the Mentimeter? Did it work for me to switch?
No. There we go. Yes, no. Now it's up.
Okay. All right. So we did a word cloud. And so the bigger words mean that more people put that on there, right? So critical thinking and empathy are pretty big because a lot of you wrote that. And there's a lot about communication and a sense of kindness. And these are all things that Project Citizen can do for a group. It can be a club. It can be a class. It can be a group of adults who get together. And, as Emily said when she was first introducing it, it's a structured curriculum to walk through the process of doing a civic action project. And I think we can all agree that everything on this screen is so important and that we need more of it in our world. There's just not even there's nobody that could really argue against it. These are all really, really important things. Having kindness and empathy for others, being confident, all of this is just so incredibly important. And those are our dispositions, but the skills also to be able to research and to present and to speak comfortably and confidently, those are things we want our kids to leave our classrooms with. But we also as adults need to practice those things. So that's the beauty of authentic assessment, is that we have that opportunity to do that with kids. Okay, now I'm switching back. So let's see if this works. I sometimes share screen is funky. Okay, can we see the Canva now?
Yes.
We can. Yay, look at me being a Zoom expert. Okay, so what we call these skills and dispositions in the social sciences are the disciplinary skills. And a few years ago, well, it's been more than a few. It's been a good 8 years. The C3 framework was introduced and the inquiry arc was introduced. And so, what we want kids to be able to do at every single grade level is to construct questions, to develop them, to have inquiry, to really question things, but also to, when they're questioning things, to do that through sourcing, through finding relevant sourcing. I know media literacy is a huge topic right now and very, very important. And we want them to develop a claim and use evidence. And then we want them to come to some conclusions and to be able to present it and then actually take action. Every single one of these pieces of the inquiry arc is exactly the process that Project Citizen walks students through. It is so cool to see them come to this conclusion at the end, to present it and to make an impact on their own community, whether it's their school, they go to their school board, they go to a city council meeting, or even bigger, we had some students last year that went to our state legislature and tried to help pass a bill. I mean, that is just the coolest thing because they've done all these steps and they have the evidence and they have done the research. So we are right in line with what the social studies community is looking for. We already had that. And I think I saw Marcy mention that this was a Disney curriculum a long time ago. Project Citizen's been around for a really long time. So this is nothing new. We've already been doing this with our kids. We just now have names for it, which is kind of cool. Denise, do you want to walk through this? This is one of our favorite charts that we share at Professional Developments. And I think it's, again, another opportunity for us to remind ourselves why we do this work and how important it is for our kids in the 21st century.
Yes, so 20th century competencies is been a big buzzword out there for probably, I'd say, the last 5 or so years. And there is often a misconception among educators as well as families and students that when we're talking about 21st century competencies, a lot of people kind of zero in on the use of technology. Yet, when we look at the 21st century competencies, there's actually 6 different dimensions to it. Starting, and only one of those dimensions is the use of technology in learning. So when we talk about having a 21st century classroom or 21st century learning happening within our classroom, it's not having a laptop out and having students learning through the technology itself. That's just one of those dimensions. So we have collaboration, knowledge of construction, real world problem solving and innovation. Of course, the use of technology, self-regulation, and skill communication. And all of these dimensions are embedded within the Project Citizen framework itself. And then there's different levels in the competency, and the goal is to be working at that top level. But of course, not every lesson, not every unit is going to, it doesn't necessarily make sense to be at the top level of all of those, but you want to make sure that we're working within the top level where it makes sense within the work that our students are doing in our classroom. And this chart is actually a chart that was put together from the school districts that I currently work in and Christine worked in. And it really helped us as educators be able to understand what we were talking about with 21st century competencies.
I muted myself and then I forgot to unmute. Sorry. I saw a few people say that they really liked this chart. We have the whole PowerPoint presentation in a folder for you that Emily's going to share out, so you'll have access to this. But you can also just Google Washoe County School District and you can find this chart on their 21st century learning website as well. But I promise we're sharing it all. I always love that when you go to a presentation, you're like, oh, I need that. And you want to make sure you have a copy. So I promise. So one of the things about 21st century learning that we want to make sure we're embedding in our classrooms, again, goes back to those disciplinary skills, is using authentic assessment. And I'm guessing that if you're here today, you believe in authentic assessment and you believe that it is a really important aspect of teaching in the 21st century, that students need to have opportunities to showcase their learning in a really authentic way, which again, Project Citizen does, because it's really all about student voice and choice. So we're gonna play a little game here with authentic assessment. I don't need to read the entire definition of authentic assessment. Again, I'm guessing because you're here, you already believe in it, but these are great, important pieces and definitions. And I'm going to give you some graphics. And this is what you can have as your own research for when you need to go have that conversation with an administrator to say, here's why my kids are on the floor doing a project, rather than reading a textbook at all times, right? We all need that. We all need that support. So we've done the research for you, and we're going to give you some really great resources for a starting point to have that conversation with your department or your admin to say why it's so important that you're embedding this in your classroom. Some fun. So this article from the Resilient Educator is one of the ones I recommend. All of those skills and dispositions that you all mentioned in the beginning, that's where they come in, right? Our kids are having the opportunity to show us that they have done more than memorize facts. And that's really important. And as you all mentioned, you find all those skills and dispositions really important. So a couple of differences. So a traditional assessment measures the student's knowledge of the content, whereas authentic assessment is measuring their ability to apply the knowledge to a real life situation. So it's not that it's not important to traditionally assess students. It's still important to make sure that they're understanding the content, But how they apply that content is what we're measuring in authentic assessment. And there's just, some other things about it, right? So traditional assessment typically requires recall, some more practice with cognitive abilities. Those are important pieces, right? I mean, we had a parent teacher conference this morning and we have to work on our daughter's multiplication facts. Those are important things. She has to be able to recall them in order to be able to apply the knowledge in something like a word problem, right? So it's not that we're saying traditional assessment is bad, like get rid of it. That's absolutely not what we're saying. But some sort of balance of both and really giving students that opportunity to show how to apply the knowledge that they've learned is where authentic assessment comes in. Okay, so we're going to play a little game. I think that this one's an easy one. So in the chat, is this a traditional or authentic assessment? An exam? Just write traditional or authentic in the chat box. Or you can unmute. That's okay too. You're not like forced to stay muted the whole time, by the way, everybody. Feel free to shout it out.
We have a 100% reaction of traditional.
Okay, so I just gave you a traditional assessment, and I asked you to recall based on a picture, right? And so obviously this is a traditional assessment. So how can we make it authentic? So one of the ways we could do that is by giving students a scenario and having them come up with a solution to a problem by showing their content knowledge and then applying it to a scenario. So that's one way to make traditional and kind of blend it into a more authentic. Again, there's a need for both. It's not that we're saying one is bad or worse or better. Okay. Traditional or authentic assessment, a Q&A discussion. So the teacher asks a question, students raise their hand and answer. What do we have here?
We have some votes for authentic, 1 vote for traditional, and 2 votes for it could go either way.
Oh, okay. Well, admittedly, this one was a little bit less obvious. But typically in a Q&A, you really are just showing recall of the content. The teacher saying, in what year did Columbus sail the ocean blue? And all the kids raise their hand and someone says 1492, right? And so this isn't requiring a lot of engagement, interaction, or having students show application of their skills. But one way that we can make it more authentic is to do something like a Socratic seminar. Hopefully you've tried one or seen one. They're amazing. It is incredible. And the big piece is that the teacher steps out of the picture. The teacher is not part of the discussion. It's really the students leading the conversation, but it's rooted in research and documentation. So typically there will be multiple documents that the students will be referring to. There will be questions that they've had an opportunity to ask of the material, but also questions posed to them by the teacher. So that's another way to engage students in discussion. You're not going to have a Socratic seminar every day. That would be so much work on not only the teacher's part, but it wouldn't be as exciting for kids to do it every single day. But it's one of those things, right? So you could do some Q&A, figure out where your kids are at with the content and say, oh, we need a little more support here. I'm going to give them some more documents and some more research on this piece of that information. And then we're going to have a class discussion on it, something like a Socratic seminar. And there's lots of discussion strategies that take much less time than a Socratic seminar. So that's another webinar for another day. All right, traditional or authentic, a group project.
Okay, we have several votes for authentic, although one other one that is, it depends on the project and the task.
Yeah. Okay. Well, typically group projects, yes, it absolutely could be authentic. It really depends on the task. Um, from what from what I've seen over 20 years of teaching, I wouldn't say that they're always really having students apply their knowledge, and they really also don't give students a lot of choice and voice. It's typically it's very structured for the teacher because they've got some really specific goals in mind. It's not that they're bad. Again, there's a time and place for them, but to make them a little bit more authentic, you could incorporate a civic action project where they take the information they've learned about their local government and find something that they want to improve upon. And luckily, we have the perfect civic action project outline for you, which is what we're talking about today. That was totally a lead-in. Did you catch it? Did you? So what we're going to show you today is a civic action project, and that is Project Citizen. And really, that's exactly what it is. It's a civic action project. So you may have heard that term thrown around in the last several years. It's become a big thing, especially in high schools. A lot of states, including our own, are requiring students, in order to get a civic seal on their diploma, for them to do some sort of participatory, citizen type project or a civic action project. They're called different things in every state, but that's basically what they are. And the beauty of Project Citizen for a teacher is that, as we're going to see, the steps are already detailed and outlined. So this doesn't require you to start from scratch. It gives you the structure that you need for something this big, because it really does require going in all kinds of different directions depending on what topic the kids pick. And so that's where we're going to go with this. And so I do have several more things on authentic assessment, but I feel like you guys really get this. So again, this is really for you to be able to take back to get support if you need it. And again, a lot of this came from an article from the Resilient Educator on authentic assessments. And these are all the reasons, some actual studies that have been done about how they've improved students. They have higher grades, they have more confidence, they showed student diversity, and all of these skills and dispositions that we wanted them to have, right? They're taking ownership, they're being creative, they're learning to fail. Oh boy, is that important, right? That's so important. Keeping an open mind, understanding that sometimes there's multiple answers, and Project Citizen requires them to come up with multiple answers. So we couldn't have a more perfect example of authentic assessment, in my opinion. All right, so I think, Denise, is this you, or am I going to do? Oh, I'm doing civic action projects. I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry. Denise is up next. Okay, so I already mentioned civic action projects. Again, this is just some background on the big picture of what a civic action project is. It allows students to use inquiry to develop solutions for the community that they care about. Civic action projects are about public policy sometimes, and that again is what Project Citizen really asks students to think about, is how can they actually change that public policy. It does challenge students to work on an actual problem, so going back to that group project, a lot of times group projects are really, they're made up problems. They're not real. It's like you ask students to solve how we could have changed something in history. And that's not as relevant as finding a solution to a current problem. You still have to research history. You still have to look in the back and say, what could we have done differently if, we had drawn the lines of a state this way, or we had done this, right? There's a lot of things that they still have to look back on, but it's authentic, and it requires them to actually solve a current problem. I have to move my hold on, I have to just move the little boxes of everybody's faces because I couldn't see my whole screen. Civic action projects also relate to social emotional learning. And if you look at the tenets of social emotional learning, responsible decision making, self-management, self-awareness, social awareness, and relationship skills, they do all of these things. So I know that a lot of schools across the country are really, really focused on student social emotional learning, to the point that most middle schools have an entire class period now. It used to be called like advisory or study hall, and now it's actually your social emotional learning practice time. This is actually a perfect place to do a Project Citizen project. It's when I did mine in my middle school when I taught. We actually did our work together, and it fit perfectly with our SEL curriculum in our school district because it required them to do all of those things together. So this is another place that you're bundling things together in a real life situation rather than kind of those examples and that curriculum that you're given that doesn't feel as authentic for kids. And there's a list. Again, we're providing this for you. I don't like reading the entire thing, but there's some really good examples of types of things if your students are really struggling to come up with a topic. Here's some things to get them moving along in the process. Although I've never seen kids not be able to come up with a topic, I'm going to be really honest. But here is the big piece. It's all about student voice and choice. And that's where a typical group project does not, because the teacher defines the project rather than the students. So that's the big difference. All right, this is Denise digging into informed action. So I'm going to mute myself and let her start on informed.
So when we're when we're looking at informed action, we have two circles. So we have the circle of being informed, where students are learning information, learning about content, and then we have the circle of actually taking action. So how do we blend those two together? And when we blend those two together, that is when we have the informed action. So we have, I do have some examples. So so what it is it's student driven, it connects to content, student choice goes beyond the classroom, and it really is results driven, although the results may not always be the results the students are hoping for. So those are still results. What it is not is volunteer hours, which is still very important to give back time to community, but that is not informed action. Service without being informed. A lot of times we'll see students will get involved with something because that's what all their peers are doing, or it's like huge out there on social media, yet they haven't really taken the time to learn about what it is that they want to, if they want to go join in a parade or some type of if they want to create a petition or something like that. A lot of times they're doing it because it's on social media, it's the thing to do, but they haven't really taken the time to become fully informed about that decision. And it does not look the same at all levels. And that's really important. So what is happening in a kindergarten classroom that is a true informed action is look very different in a high school AP government class, right? So, but they're still informed. The students are still taking informed action. So here are some examples. Before I was trained in Project Citizen, I had my students in my 8th grade or 7th, no, this was the 8th grade project, middle school social studies classes. They had to take some type of informed action at the end of the school year. And so I had students that were working individually as well as students that worked in small groups. So I had a student who took informed action on water pollution. She focused on Lake Tahoe, and she did multiple types of action of information. She created a podcast. She put it on social media, created posters. She also made little bracelets that she sold and donated to the Keep Tahoe Blue Foundation. I had another student who was in the foster care system, and she was quite an avid reader, and she said she decided to do a book drive that went to students that were in foster care, because she said a book is something small enough that no matter which home you went to or where you were placed, it was yours, because they were so limited on what they could take. So she did a book drive. She then donated it to her social worker, who then dispersed them out to other children that were in foster care. And then we had a group of students that were creating an anti-bullying campaign and actually presented to our school board. All right, so I just have 3 scenarios to kind of help us understand the being informed to taking action to informed action. So students read about selected cultural areas and then compose a 3-paragraph descriptive essay. Which of those 3 categories is that? Being informed, informed action, or taking action? And you can just type it in the chat. And that is being informed, right? So they are taking information and they are showing us what they have learned through an essay. Students create works of art that they will present on exhibition night as they explore the driving question: how can we create an exhibition that celebrates Native America past and present? Is that being informed, taking action, or informed action? Type that in the chat. And this is taking action. So this is another example of like a group project, right? So there's specific parameters. Although there may be some student choice and voice within this, but they're creating a display. They're not making necessarily sustainable change within their school or their community. And our third example, after investigating the inquiry question, how can we better honor the cultural heritage of this land? Students decide to audit the text within the school library and present their findings to their librarian. So is that being informed, taking action, or informed action? And yes, this is an example of informed action. So all 3 of these types of assessments would be great within a unit, but you can see that last one really has some meat to it to make some change. Then, of course, what they would ask the librarian to do with that information, of course, as far as making sure that they have different cultures represented within the library, within the books that are being checked out. So that's just a really kind of simple example of how we can take it to that final step of informed action. So one of the biggest takeaways for me when I was trained in Project Citizen is how do I have my students not it just become like this quick little volunteer project that they were working on? How do we have it be sustainable change? And that when I learned about with Project Citizen, the public policy piece was my key takeaway within the training, is that students may go out and they may organize a park cleanup, which is great, but probably in 2 weeks that park's going to have litter around it again, right? So it's not sustainable change. So actually having students be involved in the making of public policy, and that process is how we will see sustainable change, whether it be within our classroom, our school community, or our cities.
And so I just want to throw in a thought there. So when I was looking at that previous slide in the example, my thought was, if this was to be a Project Citizen project, the next step that we would say that kids would be doing is that then they would come up with a plan to present maybe to their local school board to have an actual school board written policy that states that all of the that's a new thing on Zoom, by the way. You like accidentally raise your hand. I'm a hand talker and it like starts raising your hand for you. Sorry. So they would actually draft a proposal to the school board and create a policy. And so it doesn't have to be a policy that goes to like the United States Congress.
Right.
It can be as simple as their principal writes a policy, or they present to their local school board, or even if they're looking at their local public library, they could also present to their county commission or whoever manages their public libraries in their state. So that's this, I kind of had that same aha moment when I really started digging into this curriculum was, okay, so I'm already doing all of these things, but I really just need to take it that one step further where it's that sustainable change. That was the term that really helped me to see the big picture of why this made it authentic. Why was this more than just a quick conversation in class where kids go, oh yeah, well, we should be doing that. But helping them to see that they can be part of the change, right? Because that's where then as adults, they say, oh, well, yeah, I did that in high school, or I did that in elementary school. I know how to go in front of my school board. That feels really easy and comfortable for me. And so that's really where we see the most sustainable change is when we look at this policy piece of Project Citizen. And again, just a plug for the steps that are already outlined. It's all there for them, right? You as a teacher don't have to be some sort of policy expert who's worked on Capitol Hill to know how to do this. And I think that's the intimidating part for us as teachers is like, ooh, I have no idea how to present that to somebody, right? So, okay, sorry, Denise.
No, that was perfect. Thank you for
that was my aha moment. I felt like I needed to share.
So within Project Citizen, and we're going to take you through these steps. So it's student voice and choice, totally student driven within the components of a Project Citizen project. And so they start with identifying a problem. They conduct research. They look at multiple solutions to the problem. They propose a probable solution on how to solve it. And they present it to whatever the government agency is that will help them move that forward. And then one piece that is often missed is the reflection. So I know that in some of our Project Citizens, some of our judges have mentioned that we're missing the student reflection piece, and that's really important, is to make sure that students have that opportunity to reflect on the process and reflect on the learning that they achieved during this process. All right, so there are 6 steps, like I briefly went through: identifying the problem, selecting a problem. So I will tell you that step 1 and step 2 are often some of the most tedious, and I think almost time consuming, is just getting students started with that, in identifying, okay, so what is a problem? And so they have to identify a problem that is connected to a public policy or a lack of public policy. So they have to identify a true public policy issue, and then they have to narrow it down, because you're going to have just bulletin boards or whiteboards full of students' ideas of problems that they want to solve. And so then that narrowing down process is really important. And then having students have a buy-in if their problem wasn't chosen. Well, why do I care? Why do I want to help solve this problem? It's not the one that I care about. So the step 1 and 2, I think, are the most important. And kind of the teachers really have to kind of finesse that process in getting step 1 and 2. Then step 3, they research the problem and start develop the portfolio. Then, so we have the portfolio as presented in a simulated hearing, but if you can have them actually present to the government agency, so much more valuable for students, because again, they're doing it for, it's authentic, they're doing it for a specific purpose to make that change, not just to pretend to make that change. But if they are presenting to a panel that's going to be judging them, it might very well be a simulated hearing, that panel. And then, of course, step 6, that reflection piece, really important. Okay, so Christina and I have talked enough. So now we're going to get you guys engaged and involved. And what I did was I went through the Project Citizen book, and there are some handouts in there that actually go through each section. And what I did was I just copy and pasted it into a Word document. And so what we're going to do is we're going to send you out into breakout rooms. And each breakout probably, gosh, so we have 78 participants. We'll have to figure out, because we don't want those breakout rooms too big. We'll probably, although I mean, 10 might not be too bad, huh, Christine, if we do something like that in a breakout room?
There's 23, so 20, not including us. So maybe 4 breakout rooms of 5?
Okay, yes. And then each breakout room is going to be assigned one of the sections of the portfolio, where, again, I have that just in a Word document, and I think Emily is going to share that with you, right, Emily? Christine, did you send that to her? Oh, yeah. Christine, you have it. Okay.
I'm going to pop it into the chat right now. I made this a Google Doc that it says everybody can.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
And edit. So you should be able to type right in it, everybody. So if somebody will do me the favor of just clicking on it and making sure that, like, sometimes when you share a Google Doc, it says you shared it to everyone, but it doesn't know. Yeah. Sally's giving me the thumbs up. Okay, yay. Yeah. Okay, it's shared now.
So Christine, if you'll go back to the screen share for me.
Yep.
Okay. So what we would like you to do is in your breakout groups, you're going to be assigned a section, and we have 6 sections. Is that correct? I believe so. And then again, what we'd like you to do is take a few minutes to kind of talk about the components of the section. But more importantly, what we would like you to do is create a Google slide that you'll share back with us that is going to have, thank you, Christine, going to have some type of symbol, graphic, or image that represents the details required in that section. Have some of the details, whether you're doing it through images or bullet points. And then really important on that, if you will show what you believe the areas that students will easily understand and be able to access. And then what are some roadblocks? What are going to be some misconceptions or roadblocks that students might have with that specific section? So again, you're only working on one section within it, and then we'll present back out to the whole group. Okay. So again, a graphic or symbol image to represent that section of the portfolio, some specific details, however you want to show that, and then student understandings and student roadblocks. Okay?
Okay, I just stuck that slide at the very top of the document so everybody has access to it.
Oh, perfect.
'Cause
And
then I realized
then,
when you go into the breakout room, you're not going to be able to see
yeah.
it.
And we'll give you 10 minutes on this. We're not looking for something that's going to be put on display in an art gallery, just something to be able to get you talking, thinking, and sharing those ideas. So how many breakout rooms are we going to do? Well, we need to do 6.
Oh yeah, 6.
So if your
Like 4
breakout
or 5
room,
people.
yeah, so if your breakout room 1, you will be doing section 1. All in section 2, breakout group 2. Okay.
Sally has a question. You can unmute, Sally.
I'm only seeing 5 worksheets.
Oh.
So that's why I'm like,
Oh.
Okay, so maybe I may have, let's
Oh
see.
yeah, you did.
Oh,
did
yes, I only
as
have
well.
5, so 5 breakout rooms, Christine.
Thanks, Sally.
Thank you, Sally.
Emily, we appreciate that, Sally. Thanks. Emily's working on breakout rooms, everybody. Make
Good.
sure you've all clicked on the document.
Alrighty, and the rooms are now open.
Magic of breakout rooms.
Yes.
So you will click to join your room. And again, you don't need to necessarily type on the document. We want that Google slide.
Welcome
All right.
back, everybody.
Welcome back, everyone. Okay, so we're gonna start off with group 1, which was focusing on explaining the problem. Could you share your Google slide in the chat, and then we'll open it up to share with everyone.
All right, dropping in the chat right now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And then if we could have group 1 share.
Yep. So
What's on the slide as well as what.
So we talked about 2 separate potential issues that students might want to discuss, a lack of electric vehicle charging stations and human trafficking in the community. And we kind of talked about what types of agencies might be implicated, what types of people they might reach out to for information or might be involved in those decisions.
Okay, now so Michael, other groups didn't get to see the bullet points of what's in this within the explaining the problem. Can you guys just kind of shout out some of those pieces that are in that section?
Yeah, some of them include what problem you and the classmates want to study, how serious the problem is, why it's a problem that should be handled, if there's any laws or policies for dealing with it, and if they are laws or policies, if they're adequate, things of that nature.
Okay,
It's
thank
around
you. And then
11.
in your discussion, from those bullet points, what did you guys think that students would be able to jump in and handle pretty easily, and what do you think might they struggle with within those bullet points?
Well,
It could be anyone in the group, not just Michael.
If no one else wants to go, I can go. But with regards to the human trafficking, one thing that we talked about was potentially a lack of ability to figure out who to get involved with because it was such a widespread or homegrown problem in the community of the person who raised that issue. That was one thing that definitely popped up.
All right, thank you, group 1. All right, group 2, we're going to take a look at examining alternative policies. So within that section.
so just go to the Google Doc. We think we understood this correctly. So just go to the Google Doc and go to worksheet 2. Our initially it was like, well, how do we do this? We don't know what the problem is, right? Because we're thinking very much Project Citizen. So then we came to the conclusion that really what you were looking for is a visual, right?
Yes.
And so what we came up with, and it's not there. There it is.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so what we did is we're like, okay, so the first thing is that we have to examine alternative policies. So we used the magnifying glass. We came up with, 1, 2, 3 different, and we're examining those. So that was our visual to examine those policies. And then we have to, we kind of skipped the group or the individual that was actually proposing the policy, but we jumped to this whole idea of analyzing or identifying advantages and disadvantages. And then we lost time.
Yes. Yes, yes. So what, just real quick, what do you feel that, and it can be anyone within group 2, that students would easily be able to jump into, and what might they have misconceptions about or struggle with within examining alternative policies?
Well, I'll jump in. My students right now, they are kind of working on some projects as it is, and like dress code and cell phones happen to be very popular topics.
Yes.
And so I've encouraged them to look at not just our school policy on those topics, but other policies. And because we're middle school, I'm like, well, compare apples to apples, look at other middle school policies to see what there is, because they were looking at high school and so forth.
Mhm.
So that's what we've done. And I'm like, create a T-chart and see, okay, what is this policy and what is our policy and what might be similar compared to different. So they have that visual as well. So that's what I've done. So I'm not sure if that's exactly what you're referring to, but.
Yes, absolutely. And often it's hard to get them to identify other policies. They want to just jump in and just solve the problem, right? So it's often difficult for them to look that there's more than one solution to the problem.
Or they want to jump in and complain.
Yes, yes, yes.
Something that I heard Teresa say that I think is really important too, is the whole idea of comparing apples to apples, right? Mm-hmm. Middle school policies are probably going to be different than high school policies. And I think that that's so critical, because I think if you didn't do that, they could be very frustrated because they would want what the high schoolers want, right? And so I like that you actually help them make that and distinguish between the two.
And group 3, you looked at proposing a public policy.
I know I took the notes, but who would like to speak? Should I just go ahead? Or?
Yeah, you've got it. You got it, Alyssa.
All right. Feel free to chime in. And we didn't do slides. We also wrote on the Google Doc itself. So proposing a public policy, this is the point at which the students decide what public policy they want to propose as a class to deal with the problem. They'll check that it doesn't violate the U.S. Constitution or state constitutions. And that policy could be a new law, it could be an existing law, etc. So there are a lot of things they have to think about, but we use the idea light bulb here to represent so here's our big idea. But we were thinking that around that, and we didn't really have time to draw anything, you would have something that says like local, state, county, U.S. Constitution, state constitution, those other details would kind of also come around that. And those are all things they take into account in developing their public policy, what they want to propose that would work best for them. And some important student understandings are, what is public policy? So hopefully they have some sense of that from the prior steps. And then just the levels of government, what level of government would deal with their particular issue. Roadblocks. Somebody else actually on my team added this when we ran out of time. So does anyone else want to take a crack at sharing the roadblocks?
Yeah, so I just threw those in there real fast, just kind of thinking through it. Already what I'm seeing in my civics class with my 6th graders, I mean, we are starting from scratch with 6th grade. So it is literally understanding the path of presenting this public policy. Who do I go to? So the lack of knowledge there, just let's talk background information first and foremost before we can tackle this. Not knowing the exact path to take, and then knowing, okay, now we have to know the Constitution on top of all of this. So what is constitutional or unconstitutional about our policy? And so that's, with 6th grade especially, we are just starting from scratch. So it is getting all that background information first.
Thank you. And group 4, which is developing an action plan.
So we actually, Ann and Chandra and I, did not go to the Google Doc. We're like, I think we're supposed to go to the Google Doc, but we didn't do any of those things. So we just discussed all of those ideas that we were supposed to. So the graphic, Ann, do you want to talk about it, or Chandra?
I did make a note on the Google Doc that we
Oh,
wanted
good.
something with motion for developing a plan, but we didn't
Oh,
pick out anything.
nice.
And then we got into the obstacles discussing sixth grade challenges with middle school in general. So that's kind of where our conversation stayed, with obstacles and how they have a difficult time sometimes creating a plan because maybe they're just not used to doing that type of work. They're just used to repeating back facts or getting a right or wrong answer. And then also just sometimes they don't have the knowledge about the different levels of government and hierarchy, and even hierarchy within the school and stuff, to really start to develop a plan.
Excellent. And group 5, the reflection piece.
If you just scroll down to that part of the doc, there's a link on there that'll take you to our Google slide. If you scroll up right there on reflection, that'll take you to our.
Darren, you're like extra credit, like hyperlinked it and everything.
So because it's about reflection, we felt that a mirror would be the best the best image that we could come up with. And the details, it's really about having kids think about the project and what they learned from it. And that's what this is about. Student understanding, we thought that, like, recalling the facts of what they set up and how they proceeded through would be pretty easy to do. But some of the roadblocks might be, well, what if you get a no? Or what if your project isn't accepted, or people question your project and the way you went about it? What do you do then? I think a lot of times we want to have the right answer the first time, but how do you overcome that? Because that's what's going to help make our kids successful.
Absolutely. We had a charter school in our area went through this whole process, and they came up with this really beautiful plan to do a carpooling program where the parents would sign up on the school website and say, I want to be part of a carpool, and then they'd get matched with people in their area. And they even like contacted an app producer, and they had a whole plan. I mean, it was beautiful. And even the administration was like, this sounds great. This is exactly what our parents have been asking for. And they went to their lawyers, and the lawyers were like, so absolutely not. That there's no way that the liability for the school, if we are the ones actually saying, yes, of course, you can get in that other person's car, the lawyers just stopped him, and the kids were like, oh. And so it wasn't that the kids didn't learn a lesson, but in their reflection, they had to say, the roadblocks were just too big. We could not overcome them. And that was really hard for them because they worked so hard on it. And it was such a letdown because they were so excited that they solved this problem that their school was having and has had since they opened, but there was just nothing they could do about it. So you're absolutely right. The failure piece, the learning from failure, is probably one of the best lessons that we can help kids to learn through this process. I love it. Great job.
Yes.
All right. Now let me go back to our slideshow. Too many tabs open, everybody. Anybody? Nobody ever has like 40 tabs open, right? Just me? Okay. All right.
So thank you all for participating in that.
Okay, one of the things that we get a lot is, how would I even have time for this in my classroom? So we threw just a couple of examples together of how you can do it over time, and then how you can actually put your curriculum on hold for a full project to get done in about a month's time. And so these are, again, you're going to get these slides, so we don't need to talk through every single step of this, but the idea, if you do it throughout the year, would be to slowly introduce each step and work through it and give time here and there, but also allow for some outside of school time. Maybe if you're doing it as a and I know several of you said you're doing it in like that advisory class or that, that period of SEL time. Maybe you also work with another teacher and say, can they do some research time during your class? And you can have some flexibility like that. Or you can do a full curriculum hold where, you don't do anything else but this project. I think that it really depends on your kids. I think that's the most important thing, is figure out what works for you and your students. I have found with big projects like this, both work. It really depends on how engaged the kids are. I think sometimes doing it all as a curriculum hold and doing it all together keeps the kids really engaged. But if it's a really in-depth process, if they pick something really, really big, I think those first examples, like electric vehicle charging stations, would be a great example of that. That's going to take a lot of time to hear back from people you might reach out to for interviews and things like that, because you're going to be reaching out to maybe a state senator or something, and they may not get back to you in a day. And so doing a curriculum hold means that you're doing something very, most likely more local in your school or your school community. If you're doing something bigger, you might want to take a little bit longer on it. So I think that that's one of the ways that you can make that decision.
And you have to keep in mind too, the time that it takes to get on like a school board agenda or a county agenda, be thinking about that and have your students thinking about that when there might be some time constraints.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you intend to submit for the national showcase, Emily, do you want to share what the deadlines are for that for this coming year?
Absolutely. Yeah. So our national showcase for Project Citizen will be July 24th. So if you are intending to submit a physical board, which we'll talk more about that in a subsequent session, physical boards need to be sent by June 30th so that there's time to get them to California. And if you are planning to submit a digital or electronic board, that can be submitted by July 10th.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. All right. So speaking of portfolios, we're going to show you an example. Oh, wait, you're muted. I did the same thing.
So as we go through the portfolio, Christine, did you want to share that little checklist?
Yes, but I have to stop share.
Okay.
So, hang on a second. Unless, Emily, do you have that folder open?
That you could put it in the chat.
I can put it in the chat if you want to go ahead and start the
okay.
recording.
Tell me if you guys can hear it, because sharing sound on Zoom sometimes doesn't always work.
All right, thank you everybody for being here. My name is Mr. Callahan with Cold Springs Middle School in Reno, Nevada, and we are here for a Project Citizen portfolio showcase with my 6th period class. They have put together a public policy that they are looking to propose to our middle school athletics committee. And I just thank everybody for joining us here. Really quick, just a couple of mentions. We've got Kathleen Dickinson and Christine Hull from the Nevada Center for Civic Education here with us. So I thank you guys for being here. We've also got Jen Van Tress, it's our area superintendent here with us. Thank you, Jen, for being here. We've got a lot of parents here. We have Mark McCall from the Arizona Foundation for, I'm going to mess this up, Mark.
Legal Services and Education.
There we go. Yeah, close to the, you're working with Center for Civic Ed with Project Citizen. So thank you for being here. We've also got a couple people from Georgetown University here. So thank you both, Katie and I believe it is Pamela, maybe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but thank you both for being here as well. And anybody else I'm forgetting, I apologize, but we've got a good mission. And this is a real public policy that these kids have put together and proposed a plan for, and they are going to be presenting that now. I will give it over to them.
Christine, can you stop it for a second?
Yep.
So what we would like you to do is open up that document that's in the chat. And as we won't obviously, because of time, be able to get very far through this, but be looking at that checklist of that document as we go through each section. Okay, go ahead, Christy.
Right, and just tell me where you want me to forward to.
So first we're going to start about the problem of the situation we made. The problem group has made, the problem is basically why middle school boys should have boys volleyball.
According to the Women's Sports Foundation, Title IX was established in 1972 to provide everyone with equal access to any program or activity that receives federal financial assistance, including sports. This means that federally funded institutions such as public schools are legally required to provide girls and boys with equitable sports opportunities. On the side, you can see the list of girls and boys sport opportunities in middle school, and the girls have one more sport opportunities, therefore violating Title IX.
We sent a survey to all the boys at Cold Springs Middle School, and this was the questions on it. Would you try out for boys volleyball if it were at our school? Would you try out for a co-ed volleyball team? And what sport for boys would you like to come to our school if not volleyball?
For question one, the results were 32% of the students said yes, 25% said maybe, and 52% said no. For the second question, 20% said yes, 16% said maybe, and 62% said no. For the third question, the first sport they wanted was flag football, lacrosse, or baseball.
The people we interviewed and why. We interviewed Coach Milroy because she's one of the PE teachers here at Cold Springs, and we feel that she would be a great help. Also, we interviewed Ms. Wright because she coaches girls volleyball, and she knows what needs to happen in order to have a team.
So, Christy, why don't you go ahead and stop it just because of time? And let's go ahead and stop screen share. Yeah. So just looking in that first section with the checklist there, how do you think the students were doing with that exploring the problem section?
I think they were clear in explaining the problem. I mean, they cited Title IX, and they were very clear because they don't have this, it violates Title IX. They were very specific.
I thought their survey was interesting in that they are looking at volleyball as their solution, but with what they surveyed, that was not an overwhelming choice for boys. That wasn't necessarily interest. So that's where we already know, we're just going to add boys volleyball, then we solve the problem. But when they surveyed the boys, that wasn't necessarily a choice that boys were interested in within their school. So I thought that was interesting because that's where they have to start making those. That's why they need multiple possible solutions and how that kind of drives them. So we're running out of time, as always. But Emily did say that that the video will be embedded, and then you do have that checklist, so you can go through that. I think it's also really beneficial for your students. For example, when I did History Day with my students, I always had them look at examples along with the rubric, and they would score them just to get an idea of what it looks like, and help kind of guide them even before jumping into their Project Citizen project. So let's just open it up real quickly. Any questions at this point that we can help, and then of course would help our future presenters as they continue this this diving deep into Project Citizen.
And while you're typing those questions, I'm going to just flip to the next slide so that you can mark your calendars for the getting started, like actually digging in. And so the next session is actually about identifying those problems. So Emily, do you want to share a little bit more about how they can find that?
Absolutely. So you have the registration link at the bottom. I'm sure that many of you, when you found out about this session, you probably also saw the links to the others that we're following. But exactly, so our next session, we're really diving deep into the community problem identification. And then we're also going to be addressing some sort of frequently occurring classroom scenarios where there are disagreements among students about, well, this group really wants to work on this policy, but this group over here wants to do something completely different. So how do you as a teacher navigate? How do we choose which policy we're working on? And then also what happens if a student or a student group wants to choose a topic that you know will be an incredibly controversial one in your community. So we're going to talk about navigating some of those decisions as a teacher. So we're going to be diving into that, and then also talking about helping students identify achievable projects. So we kind of alluded to that a little bit today, where we want the students to be able to feel like they've made some kind of progress toward their interested, the project that they're interested in. So we're going to talk through those different elements with some more fabulous facilitators. So we really, really hope that you are able to join us on October 10th. And then the other thing I wanted to note before we head out, I'll be sending certificates for the number of hours at the end of the whole series. So if you need proof of hours for professional development prior to November 1st, just let me know. I'm happy to send you something, but otherwise I'll send you something at the conclusion of the whole series that says how many hours you joined us for. So with that, I do want to raise a couple of questions if we all have a moment.
Yes, I was going to say we have a couple of really good ones. So
we do. Absolutely. Okay, so a great question from Adrian. My sixth graders are with me for one semester. So a huge question is it possible to do a short version of Project Citizen? Yes. Christine, would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. So I actually I would do Project Citizen in the spring with my 7th and 8th graders. I did it after testing was over. And so that was a great time to do it when you only have a short amount of time with kids. But I think you can do it at any point in the year. And I actually think we are actually 8 weeks into our school year, and we start our fall break next week. And at the end of like any big thing, like a break or a long holiday weekend, or in between all those crazy holidays in November, I don't know about you, but like my own children, I'm like, go to school. They do not go to school in November. That's a great opportunity to do a really condensed project, because your days are so kind of all over the place and the kids are a little squirrely, gonna be real honest, they're a little squirrely at that time of year. So, or the weeks leading up to winter break, you could do it as an assessment, preparing them for finals, because they're showing the application of everything you've taught them. So you can absolutely look at using it as a final assessment, depending on what your department and your administrator expects. But yeah, you can really, really focus in on a school problem. So you can introduce it and say that you're only looking at a school problem, like something to fix in your school. Don't give them the world of options. Don't say they're going to end world hunger. Don't give them that option, right? You want to give them something really small. So have them do some brainstorming about what are some things that we could fix in our school. And it doesn't have to be fixed in the sense of like something's really broken, but like how can we improve our school community is also a really positive way to do that. Or even something, timely for that time of year, the holidays, we're all thinking about how we can give back to our communities a little bit better. So what if you were to put into school policy that we we have a jacket drive every year. I'm not sure where you're at, Adrian, but if you're in Florida, jacket drive's not going to work for you, but winter coat drive works really well for us because we had 800 inches of snow last year. So, you know, it just depends on your area. But I think Emily and anybody that works with Project Citizen would love to help you kind of, you know, figure that stuff out. So feel free to shoot Emily an email, and she'll, you know, loop some of us in if you want to have more of a conversation. We're really open to communicating and helping you with that kind of stuff.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just something to think about, the closer it is to the students, the larger the opportunity that they'll actually have success in making that change. So just kind of keep that in mind. I know, so when I was teaching at my other middle school before I retired, we were in teams. So it could even be something that they wanted to change within something within our core curriculum team of students, you know, or the way things that we did things within our team. So, you know, as it doesn't have to go school wide, it could even be within the classroom itself, something that they would like to see change within their classroom, the time that they have with you. So,
yeah. I love that, Emily. Project Citizen is like Jell-O. It fits whatever mold you give it. That's so true, because it can be done in a community group. It can be done as a team. It can be done in a small, short piece, or you can end world hunger. If you do that, I'd love to hear about it. I think that'd be really cool. But yeah, we don't want to keep you all too long. So make sure you, you know, follow up with Emily with any questions that you have. It will really help our next couple of presenters to ensure that those questions are answered throughout. And I think that's it. Emily, do you have anything else?
That's it. I will send you follow-up emails tomorrow with links, and we'll let you all go for this evening. Thank you all so much, and we look forward to seeing you next month.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.